Welcome on my presentation about SSO, making SSO easy and clear and easy with Sitecore XP. And Sitecore XP, as you saw, is still alive and we are still working with it, and probably will do. So let me quickly introduce myself in case you don't know me. My name is Rafał Potempa and I am a technical architect at VML, and I'm working with Sitecore related projects for like 8 years now. So let's go through the agenda, what we will hear today. So some basics, some theories, some common vocabulary, and then we will see like what are the common approaches to do SSO, like SAML and OIDC, and we talk a bit more about OIDC because I guess it's easier, more user-friendly or more developer-friendly. And we'll go through some simple workflow, how to configure external SSO in Sitecore, and some demo. Hopefully it will work, but you'll never know. So let's start with the basics, because I guess it's good to have like a common vocabulary. So the authentication, authorization. So authentication, process of identifying a user, so confirming who he is. So based on some things that he can share with us, like user like name or password, and authorization, process of checking what the user can do and what we want to share with him. Głośniej, louder.
This direction.
This direction.
You are speaking.
Yeah, okay. So some history, maybe how we approach that authorization, authentication in the past. So we have like we developers were doing it by their own. They were responsible for the security. They were responsible for the whole flow of logging in, creating user, storing all the rules that needs to. Yeah, it was beautiful, but probably it wasn't the best approach to let developers do that. And also, they need to take care about lots of things, and sometimes the rules needs to be changed, and that was problematic. And the other thing that it had to be done on each and every application that was developed. So then the SSO came, and so let's dive into it and see like what it is, how we can implement that. Can we use it with Sitecore, really? Or maybe, yes, we are using it with Sitecore, right? Because since version 9, it's already there, so Sitecore also has its own identity server. So we are using that approach, and basically, we can say, okay, that's it. So maybe we don't need to talk about that, but we can maybe do something more. So when I started digging into that topic some time ago, because also we were introducing that on our project in Sitecore XP, so it was a lot of abbreviations, lots of jargon. So it's quite hard for someone to like familiarize himself to that, and because there's lots of terms and they are often quite mixed with each other, lots of abbreviations. So I hope that we will clear some of them. So let's start with the basics. So what is single sign-on or SSO? So we can like quote Wikipedia, but in other words, like we have users, multiple applications or some services, and we are allowing users to log into them with the single set of credentials. And we have the term federated identity. So basically when we say about that, it's we want to handle user profiles in one place, we want to manage user in one place, so it's easier for us to create or change some settings for the users, and also handle all the access rights again in one place and share that with many applications. So what's the benefit of it? So for sure improves the user experience, and the happy user is the most important part of it. And yeah, we no longer have to take care of those passwords and users in the database for those rules. And when the GDPR comes, we don't need to be scared. And yeah, it's easier for the administrators to work. And yeah, we can also ask politely or force users to like create more complex passwords or introduce multiple factor authentication. And again, all of that will be handled not by us, but by third-party service that we will just integrate with. But yeah, of course, there are also always drawbacks. So yeah, we have like single point of failure, and yeah, if that authentication service identity provider doesn't work, then we have a problem. Or when our credentials are taken like for some third party, we also that person has access to our own resources. So yeah, that is why that we have to introduce like complex passwords, multiple factor authentication, and yeah, of course, sometimes it's complex or hard to implement, but yeah, we are trying to make it easier. And yeah, in terms of multiple factor authentication, so for sure you are familiar with that. So yeah, it's like three terms, something that user knows, something the user has, and something you are, right? So some passwords, but some other things you have, some like you can receive some SMS or like authentication application, maybe you have some dongle, but something you are, so yeah, your fingerprint or face recognition, and yeah, multiple factor authentication is like a mix of that. So if we take a look how it works, like in very simple, like high level, and we will have some actors, and I'm using like some SAML terminology because yeah, as I mentioned, it can be easy. So we have like one solution like SAML, we have OIDC, and you know, for the same things we have different names because yeah, it cannot be easy. So when we take a look into that SAML, so we have some client and its browser, we have service providers, so some service that provides us some data, we have identity provider, so a service that provides that authentication and authorization, and yeah, we have trust, so it's like we are the application and identity server relies on trust, so we will tell later what it is. And we have some tokens that are used for working later. And yeah, those tokens also can be different depending on what technology we will use. So yeah, if we have like that happy customer, happy user, we have some service, and that user, not sure if you can read that, but yeah, that user wants to access the service. The service tells the user that yeah, he needs to go to some identity provider because that service is not responsible for authentication. And yeah, that's important here that that service tells the user that he needs to go to the identity provider that the application trusts. So basically meaning that the user is redirected to identity provider where the service is registered. And yeah, we have identity provider, so the user is redirected to identity provider. The authentication part is done, and so user provides credentials to that identity provider, and the identity provider returns a token like very high level. And then the user can go back to the service and add and share a token with the service. Of course, the service should validate the token. And with the token, user is able to grab the data. We will maybe tell later how we can validate the token and what does it mean. And we can have a service B, and again, user wants to access that data, and the service B redirects into that identity provider, and the user is like checking if he's authenticated already there. If he's authenticated, if this is like in the same browser, let's say, that he gets the token already, and yeah, this you can send it to service B. Service B validates the token. Yeah, something wrong with my animation. And with that token, service B also returns the data. So the user was authenticated by an identity provider, was able to get the data from two services, right? So yeah, the trust. So and so when we register application in identity provider, the identity provider share with us some secrets that we can use. So like the client secrets, client ID, client secret, and all the URLs that are used for redirecting the user during the authentication process are whitelisted. So all of that is configured. Also, we can like enhance that with some certificates if it needs to be more secured. And yeah, then we have that metadata that we can share across. And there is also quite often used term claims that will pop up. So basically, it's just some data that we are exchanging with the identity provider, and then sending that to the application. Those claims are part of the token. This is like also signed by the certificate that identity provider has, so we can check that it's not modified during the way, and we will have their authentication method and maybe some properties. And also we have the term that claims transformation. We will see how it works later, and the idea is to because yeah, we have like different parties of that. We have identity provider, we have some services, and we are sharing some data. And for example, Sitecore, so some metadata defined in identity provider might not be clear for the Sitecore. So we can like transform the claims that are stored in identity provider, so some metadata, into the metadata that is understandable by Sitecore. So we will see example for that. And also, yeah, with that SSO we have like logging out part. So we also need to remember about that. And it's like done on or we can think about signing up like on a different layer. So we have an application layer, our application layer that we need to just log out the user. So to yeah, take care of the user sessions, we have identity provider session, and also we need to log out the user from the identity provider. And yeah, this is also tricky because we can have like lots of applications. So yeah, maybe we want to all of the application know that in just 1 second that we are logged off. So this is something that yeah, we need to take care of manually, like notify those applications and do something with that. And the other tricky part is that when we have those tokens issued by the identity provider, and those tokens like cannot be invalidated. So the token just it is what it is. It has some validation date. Yeah, it doesn't help. And just yeah, it will work. So yeah, the best practices are just like short-living coffee making tokens, and I guess that's it. And short-living session for the application. So we are often checking if the user is login in the application, and we are quite often checking if the token that was provisioned is still valid. And yeah, if we are talking about the standards that we can use for SSO, in most cases you will find SAML and OIDC, and quite often you can also read that you should use OAuth, which is confusing because it's not right the case, because OIDC, which sometimes is ODIC in my presentation. So OIDC is built on top of OAuth, and I spotted one mistake before starting, but obviously there are more, so have fun spotting that. And so OIDC is built on the top of OAuth, so basically we should just compare OIDC and SAML. And so two different approaches, so SAML based on XMLs, in XML format, so tokens are called consist of XML assertions, and it's quite mature. It's over 20 years on the market, widely adopted, so all those big organizations probably will use it or will try to tell you that you should use it. But some are open to newer standards, so like OIDC. It's called OpenID Connect. It's newer, and it's built on top of OAuth protocol, and so basically it takes off authorization capabilities and adds authentication on top of that. And in case of OIDC, we are using JSON format, so the token consists of some JSON part, and it's like easier to work with. So quick deep dive, so not to have the presentation very too long. As I mentioned, OIDC is built on the top of OAuth, and when we take a look into the token that is used, so JSON Web Token, it consists of three main parts, so header, payload, and verification signature. So in header we have information what type of algorithm was used for creating that. Payload is that we can say those claims, that some data that we want that those parties are sharing. So what, for example, who is the issuer of the token, so who created the token, maybe what the token is for, so the audience for the token, or maybe some metadata that we just want to share. And basically it's quite an open standard, so we can share what we want. And and the signature, so we can verify if the token is valid, let's say. So if it was not modified during the way when we were receiving it, so we can compare that, check if this is if that whole token is digital signed using the public key that is publicly available from the identity provider. And as I mentioned before, the token is self-contained, so it's like a self-living thing, independent thing. So the site that uses the token should validate it. I mean, should check if this is properly signed, if that is still valid, if the issuer is valid, if the maybe audience is valid, and then also the quite important part of the token are scopes, which we will get, I guess, later into that, but also we are checking the scopes. And so maybe let's quickly take a look into OAuth itself, because as I said, it's a base for OIDC, so it's quite good to understand how it works, and then it's easier to understand how OIDC works itself. So it was created for the delegation of for a delegation of authority. So the idea was that one application wants some data from the other application, and we have a user who has access to both applications, but that the user doesn't want to share the credentials with one application to allow that application to get data from the other application. So it was invented for like delegating that authority. So the service B can get access to service A can get access to service B on behalf of the user without knowing its name and password. And yeah, we have again some terminology for the parts that are taking actions here. So we have like a client, we have a resource owner, we have authorization server and resource server. So for example, like we have a service provider with SAML, so here we will have resource server. So we have lots of different terms that we need to learn when we taking in all of that. So again, if we can see and start with the happy user. So we have like a service A here. So the client, like an application client. We have service B, which is a resource server. So the service B so service A wants service B to share some data with it. And so the user is starting that process. So yeah, he does something in the application. Application tells the user that yeah, he needs to go to the identity provider and allow the service A for accessing service B. So we have another like authorization server there, and the user again tries to log into that, provide credentials, and the authorization server can after authenticating will return the user redirect the user back to the service A with the proper with the code. So it's the important part here that we are not giving or we shouldn't give the token right away. We are just starting with the code that then the service A can use to get the proper token. So we will receive the code, and it's also important that the user asks or the service asks for the token for the proper scope. So we can think about scopes like a set of rights. So if application A wants to get some, I don't know, data from or news from service B, then probably we can configure authentication server that tell in the authentication server that we have a scope news, and then we will ask for the token with the scope news, and then the token will contain that information that this is only for the scope news, and in all other parts we will can refer to that. And also in service B we can check if the token is for the scope news, so should we return news, and we shouldn't return anything else. And that part that service receives that code, and then with the code asks for a token. It's also important from the security reason that the flow looks like that. So because if we imagine that we have a web app and we will share the tokens in the web application, it can be hijacked somehow. But when we are sharing just the code, then we can in the backend use the client ID or some other credentials along with that code to grab the token. Because as we remember, the service A is registered in the authentication server, right? So it has some metadata shared with the authentication server, like client ID or client secret. And authentication server returns the token with the proper scopes. Of course, service A should validate that, and then service A can ask service B for the data using the token has the proper scope for the data that interests us or interests service A, and service B of course validates the token and returns the data. And yeah, so probably it's hard to read, but yeah, it's just a bit.
It's magic.
Just a bit, yeah. And so yeah, OIDC. So because yeah, so we had like OAuth. It was good for like sharing those rights to have access to some resources. But it was that missing part for the authentication, so it was added and to the OAuth, and then yeah, that OIDC standard was created, and it's more strict than OAuth, and it added additional tokens. So for the OAuth, we are having like an access token, and when we are using the IDC, we can receive also identity token, so ID token, and that ID token consists some information about our user, and also we can use that ID token later to get some more additional information from identity provider. And the cool thing is that we have some standardization of endpoints and scopes, so every identity provider or authentication server that uses IDC expose that endpoint with like well-known OpenID configuration, and yeah, I tried to show that to you, but probably you can see it. So there you can see or you can receive all the endpoints that you can use with that IDC. You can receive the set of scopes that is configured with that identity provider. So yeah, everything is quite clear. So yeah, again, if we will go through that diagram, it's again the same situation. We have service A, so the user wants to access that. Service A redirects the user to the authorization server. User, yeah, needs to authenticate there, and the authentication server gives us the code. We are redirecting back to the service, giving the code. The service can then ask for the authentication token for the scope, and also like get the ID token. So with OIDC, there was additional scopes introduced, like OIDC scope and also a profile scope, and that too gives us like information about the user. We can also use email scope to get user email, but the rest basically is the same. So it's, as I said, it's an additional layer built on top of OAuth, and yeah, we have with that OIDC, so we can like again not only, so we will have not only access token to get some data with it, but we will have also ID token, so we can also reach the profile endpoint in the authorization server and get also the user data. Of course, nothing stops us for having some third-party API or some other system that will store more data about the user and get that data from there, of course, using tokens, which will be validated. So yeah, application have token and receives the data, and yeah, and of course we have like lots of identity providers on the market. We have Microsoft solution, we have Okta, we have Ping. I'm using in my demo, I will use Auth0 by Okta, but yeah, there are many more. I was also playing with Ping, and yeah, we were using it on our project. I guess Ping is a bit more complex or complicated. Auth0 looks a bit easier, and yeah, for the beginning. And Yeah, so as I mentioned, we have also that identity server, identity provider in Sitecore. It's built on top of the server, and it delegates authentication to membership provider, but also it can delegate to some other identity provider, and basically it's what we will do today, or see today, that we are delegating that process to some other party. So yeah, we can connect with some other parties, and there is also important part that we can like distinguish that, okay, we can have for the backend back office, so for the admin panel we can still use the identity providership with Sitecore, and basically it's a best practice from Sitecore. So Sitecore encourages us to do that, but for the front-end application we can use like other identity providers, and also we can like even configure so each and every site that we are having in our Sitecore can have a different identity provider. And yes, the users, so when we are using some third-party identity provider, obviously we need a user in Sitecore, so when the session is created in Sitecore, we need to have a user. So we have like two options. We can have regular user in Sitecore, so each and every time someone logs into Sitecore using that third-party provider, a new user will be created in the Sitecore. We can also have virtual users, so that virtual user will be only living in memory. So after logging off, that will be forgotten and there will be no trace of it, so no persistence. But from the application point of view, they are the same. So it's up to us. Do we want to have users in database, or the virtual users are fine? And basically, virtual users are probably better solution if we would like to have that third-party identity provider, so not to pollute our database. And yeah, of course, the roles. So when the users are being logged in, we can like assign proper roles for them. And again, there is no difference if we will have virtual or real user. We can decide what roles needs to be added, and again I will show you that how we can do that. And yeah, mapping claims. So yeah, we can use the process. So for example, when we have like in identity providers, so we can define some rights for the user. So the user can be assigned to some roles that will be like a generic or defined in identity provider, and based on those roles, we want to assign the user in Sitecore proper roles. But the Sitecore has its own roles and doesn't understand our roles in identity provider, and we can have like other applications that again we want to like assign users some rights in those applications, and with help for that is brings us to mapping claims. So we can define like in configuration that, okay, well, if the user has some claims, so for example some role defined, we should assign that user to some particular role. And this is only not for the access right, but basically for anything, right? So some additional properties of the user that we will store in identity provider, and we want to map them to some fields in the user's profile, whatever. And also there is a setting that allows us to decide if we should like clear the roles when the user signs in or not. So we can imagine that the user logs in for the first time, we have some mappings for the claims, so the user has those claims set, but then we can decide if when he logs in for the second time, maybe he will have a different roles assigned in identity provider, and maybe we should refresh them in Sitecore. So we can decide if that refresh should happen or not. And I can also show you that because I also play with that, and when you search for that in the Sitecore documentation, there is a typo there, so it won't work when you try to use it. So how it's implemented that in Sitecore. So we have that middleware, OAuth middleware that allows us basically for that federated authentication and to decide which identity provider we would like to use. And this is enabled now by default, but we can disable it if we want. And of course, the different cookies are used when we are using identity provider. So how we can configure that in Sitecore? So we have that workflow. First, we need to implement identity provider processor. So we have some piece of code that will actually do that stuff. We need to set it up properly in configuration, and then we need to tell that in identity providers pipeline that okay, you should use that identity provider. And we have like different options as I mentioned. We can tell exactly to which sites it should be used, or maybe it should be used everywhere or just some particular sites, and those sites that are used for the administration part, maybe they should be left alone. Then we can get to the part or modify the part when the user is being created by Sitecore, because basically we can leave it alone, or we can like override the process and maybe assign the user some additional data, or maybe use some custom profile. And of course we also may want to configure that claims mappings that I mentioned, so the Sitecore can fully understand the metadata related with the user that we are sending. And also we have properties mapping part, so we can also tell Sitecore to map some metadata that we are sending in those tokens. For example, ID token, to map it to some properties in Sitecore. So basically we can say that either we will have more code in handling user generation and do that stuff by ourselves, or we can create more configuration and allow the generic mechanism in Sitecore to do that by us. And we need to have a proper login links that points to our identity provider, so we can either create them by ourselves, or we can use proper methods for generating those links. But it's not always work. And okay, so I also prepared some demo.
Finally some action.
Maybe you have some questions?
No, I think it's self-explanatory.
Yeah, so...
Ja to przylazłem na tylko chcę zobaczyć, jak to prawidłowo skonfigurować.
Okay, so what I prepared is a vanilla Sitecore installation, and I also have some MVC application that also utilize that.
Can you make it a bit bigger?
So so it's just a simple page in Sitecore that is giving us allowing us to log in or log out, and we can read some user data, so we can see that currently no one is logged in and we don't have any data. Also I have the other sample application from OAuth0 that allows us to like play with authentication. So we will see that we can use the same credentials in like separate system application, the same we can use in Sitecore. And also I have some API, simple API that returns weather forecast, of course, because it's a weather forecast example, why not? And but also I added some other endpoints to show you that we can also like decide based on those scopes, as I mentioned, if that the user should have access to something or not. So if the token allows for that. So if we go into Sitecore, yes. So we have like that configuration that I mentioned. So basically you can you need to configure all those secrets that I were shared with you from the identity provider, define some redirect URI, so what URI you should be redirected after logging in, what URIs you should be redirected after logging out. And also you can like define some scopes. Here is the part, probably again some bigger, which I mentioned about telling in identity provider, okay, so what you should use. I even like call it pink because I thought I would do it on pink, but after that I was playing it that with some other parts. There is also interesting part here, so some registrations which basically shouldn't be needed. They were needed like in Sitecore 9, but sometimes I got really strange errors. So with them it's working better, definitely. And here we have that federated authentication part. So we are saying that okay, please use our identity provider for that site. So I have a site called SS, and just use it there. We can also like try to extend the default external user builder with some rights, and for the identity provider itself we can also add some settings. So for example, we can use some caption or default domain for that, so or some icon, for example. So if we decide that we want to use our identity provider for logging into that back office, so we will have that additional button with what we want to call that. And also we can decide like maybe we want to clear the user's roles each and every time that the user is logged in, to have that flexibility that we will control the access rights for the user in Sitecore based on the identity provider roles assigned to the user. And we have that part about claims transformations. So for example, here I'm having some transformations. So I'm in my identity provider. I from my identity provider I'm returning some roles. So for example, Sitecore role called contact reader and to-dos reader, and this is totally not understandable for Sitecore. So what I can say is, okay, from that source contacts reader. So if I have a claim in the token that Sitecore roles has a value of contacts reader, then I need to assign a role to that user, for example, Sitecore developer, right? And also the interesting part here is that IDP claim transformation, and it's like not needed I mean, it's needed if we want this to work, because if we just use that user creation mechanism, then Sitecore just checks if the token has that IDP claim, and if not, we have exception. So we just need to add that piece of code and it will work. So it was one of that gotchas that I have, and yeah, helping part is like decompiling the libraries from Sitecore and just checking what that Sitecore does and just using it. And also we can have that properties initializer, so we can like assign some properties for the user, again based on the claims that we have. So for example, the identity provider will share a user email, but it will have like a name value, so the name will be like that. But yeah, there is no property like that in Sitecore, so we can assign that to that email. And we have that identity provider part. So basically we are like creating identity provider's processor, overriding the process core method, and utilizing in my case I'm using OpenID Connect authentication. So yeah, I'm using Microsoft's library for that. So yeah, I'm just setting here other properties. There are different notifications here, so when the security token is verified or something is failing, so again we can add some logic here. So for example, I'm storing ID and access token in the claims, so I can refer that later. And yeah, that's it. So we can like check how it works. So yeah, we will try to log in, and yeah, obviously I was already logged in here, so maybe we can try to do that way. So I can also show you how that communication look like. And so yeah, when I'm trying to log in, I have that login URL, so that points to the identity provider that I want to use for that site. And what happens is that the redirection is happening, and the redirection is to that identity provider that I defined. And in that identity provider we are passing client ID and of course those redirect URLs, so the identity provider knows where to redirect us, and the claims. So for example, we will use Jan Nowak, and after logging in we are again redirected to our Sitecore site with that code. And yeah, so getting the access token, yeah, it's happening underneath. And it's of course also important to like whitelist all those redirects in identity provider, because without that it won't work. So we can see here that the user was logged in, and yeah, it has some weird local name, because yeah, I didn't override the user creation part or generating the username, so it's automatically created. But yeah, of course we can do that. We can see that yeah, I got some full name from the user, and I can also see that user was assigned to Sitecore developer and Sitecore author roles based on those transformation that I showed you. So we can try to, yeah, so in Sitecore we can see that we have that user, because I said that the user should be regular, not virtual, so we can see that we have that user. And if we go to that auth and log in, I can show you how the users are defined. So yeah, I have my user Jan Nowak, and that Jan Nowak is assigned to those like roles that I defined in identity provider. So yeah, he has those roles: contacts reader and to-dos reader, and based on the claims, the code assigned, or Sitecore assigns the roles to that user. So probably we can like delete something, and it should affect changing the roles. So we can try to check it. So yeah, if we log out and log in, will it work? Yeah, so now we can see that you have like a user with a different role in Sitecore, so you can like steer what roles should be assigned to the user on that third-party application. And of course, we can use that user, those claims for those credentials for those that user in other application that uses that the same identity provider and that is registered there. So yeah, after hitting logging in, I can see that I'm already logged in, and I can see some data related with that user. So here I'm displaying all the claims that I'm receiving, and so you can see that yeah, I have a claim Sitecore roles that returns that permissions, those roles that are defined. And also you can see the tokens, so those tokens looks like that, so it's base 64, and there is a nice tool for decryption, so you can like check and see, and you have a confirmation that this is like a valid token, like not modified token. And you can see those parts that I mentioned, that you have that header with information about the algorithms and the payload itself. So for example, the issuer, so this is my identity provider, this is the information about the user, so ID of the user, the audience, so where I can use that token, so I can get some user info or utilize that in my API. So this is URL for my API. And yeah, the scope, the important part. So I have that OpenID, profile and email, default scopes from the OIDC, but also my application asks for the read contacts and read to-dos roles, scopes, and because the user has, so maybe I can show you, because yeah, in my roles I created two roles, contacts reader and to-dos reader, and basically the contacts reader has a permission read contacts, and to-dos reader has a permission to read to-dos. So basically those are stored in claims, so when my application asks for all the claims, only the read contacts is returned, because yeah, the user is assigned to only to that one role, because yeah, I deleted previously that one. So now the application is able only to read the contacts, and we can also see the ID token. So yeah, it's a bit more, so some information about the user, some email, so updated that, some information if the user is verified, maybe some picture. Again, it's like some metadata. And also what I did here is I connected, or I'm making requests to that API. And so you can see that I am able to read contacts, but I was not able to read to-dos. And yeah, of course I can read weather forecast, and it's because in my API when I have so weather forecast controller is like not it's available for everyone. But if I go to my contacts controller or to-dos controller, the methods for get are authorized. So yeah, I have that authorized attribute, and in that authorized attribute I'm pointing to like what policy I should use. So basically it means what scopes I should search for in the access token, and that if the access token has that scope, it means that with that access token the user or the application can get the data from that method. So that is why I can see now just not the to-dos but only contacts. And the last bit, I guess, it's when I log out, I can also see my secret data, so the contacts and to-dos. So why do I have that even if I'm logged in? So there is also like a mechanism that I can configure that my application and that API application are related in that identity provider, and I can define what scopes they can use. So if I go to like API, so I have like definition of my API here, and you can see those machine to machine applications. So I can say that okay, that API has like that trust relation with some other applications. So for example, my web app, and that relation is in that area of those permissions, so those scopes, right? And I can make, and the application itself can make a request to get the token from the identity provider with the proper like settings, with the proper grant type, but let's not go into the details. And the identity provider will return the access token with those scopes defined here, and then the application can use just the token and get the data. So it's like authentication between services, not only using the level of access of a user. And I guess that's it. So yeah, some conclusions. So it's not that hard as it looks like, but yeah, there are lots of things that you need to go through, understand lots of terms and jargon, and yeah, I guess pick up the proper technology that you want to use, so OIDC or SAML, and basically it will quite often depend on the client, because yeah, probably he used already something or the organization for the client. And yeah, there are lots of identity providers that you can use, and yeah, follow the best practices. So yeah, so we've learned the fundamentals of SSO here, and yeah, saw some benefits of single sign-on, get the standards, and see how we can implement that in Sitecore. And yeah, do you have any questions? You're already asleep, sorry.
Any questions?
But yeah, if not.
You mentioned that ping is too difficult, or is more complex?
I mean, maybe not too difficult, but yeah, I guess it gives you more options straight away, right? So when I logged into ping, it was like lots of windows, lots of checks, lots of different something. And for example, Auth0, it's like quite simple, But if you want to, for example, add to the token some additional properties, like I wanted to share my properties, so then I can map it to in Sitecore. Then I had to do some like additional setting in OAuth because like it has some, you know, like a pipeline, so you can configure like a login pipeline, and you can then decide, okay, please add to the token those roles, and it should look like that. So it's maybe, yeah, it's just my impression, but yeah.